Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something really fascinating, a literary project that claims to have found a hidden code inside the Quran. A code built not just on words, but on a very precise mathematical and poetic structure.
So, let's just start with a pretty big thought. What if the sacred stories we've known for centuries, the ones passed down for generations, what if they were built on a precise, almost unbelievable mathematical blueprint? A kind of hidden code that connects them all in a way we never really saw before.
Well, one author believes he's actually found the key. He's created a whole system called Timu Janja Yusuf, built on this very idea. And what you're seeing here is just one page from it, this incredibly dense weave of stories, poems, and numbers. Okay, let's dive in and try to figure this thing out.
All right, so what exactly is this beautiful, complex puzzle? And, what's the point of it all? What is it trying to prove? The name Temu Janji Yusuf translates to something like Yusuf's appointment, or Yusuf's promised meeting. And that name alone kind of gives you a clue, right? It hints at this destined meeting, not just of characters, but of the story itself, with poetry and calculation. And it all centers on the stories of 25 specific prophets from the Quran.
So to really crack this Yusuf code, we got to look at the blueprint, the fundamental rules that, according to the author, make this whole system tick.
The very first building block is what's called the pentagon structure. Now, don't think of a five-sided shape here. It's not about geometry. It's actually the poetic foundation for every single one of the stories.
Yeah, so that pentagon is all about the number 5. The entire system is built around this simple math. 5 times 5 equals 25. And what that means is that each of the 25 prophets gets their very own core, 5-line poem.
But here's where it gets even more interesting, because it doesn't just stop at poetry. That whole poetic structure is then intricately tied to a numerological system, one that's anchored to a single, hugely important number from the Quran itself.
And that number is 114. The total number of chapters or surahs in the Quran. This number is like the numerical anchor for the entire project. Almost every single formula is designed to lead you right back to 114.
So you end up with this really consistent 3-step rhythm for every prophet story. It kicks off with the inti puizi, that's the poetic core. Then you get the ijaz adadi, the numerical miracles, the math that links everything up, and it all wraps up with the pingajarn, the moral lessons you take away. So it's like poem, numbers, lesson, over and over again.
Okay, I know this sounds pretty complex, maybe a little abstract, but it starts to make a lot more sense when you see it in action. So let's do that. Let's see how this thing actually works.
And really, where else would we start but with the namesake of the whole project, the Prophet Yusuf? His story is basically the showcase for how this system is supposed to function.
So here's his 5-line poetic core. It starts right away by pointing out key details. It mentions his name appearing 27 times in the Quran, and it references his famous dream, which, as you know, is the event that really sets his entire story in motion.
Now, this is where it gets really clever, where the story and the math just fuse. In Yusuf's story, you've got 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, right? Well, the author creates a formula from that. 7 times 7 minus 7, which equals 42. And the argument is that 42 is not just some random number. The system claims it's a deliberate link, a numerical breadcrumb trail that leads you to a key verse in a totally different prophet story. It's all about creating this web.
And look, this isn't just some one-off trick that only works for Yusuf. The author applies this exact same logic, this same methodical approach to all 25 prophets, starting all the way back at the beginning with Adam. So let's check out the pattern for Adam. His name is mentioned, you guessed it, 25 times in the Quran. So in this system, that's not a coincidence. That's the foundation, the 5 by 5. From there, the formulas build out, pulling in other numbers to forge these connections that, once again, are all designed to point back to that one grand total, 114.
All right. We've seen the mechanics, we've seen the poetry, the math. It's incredibly intricate. But that brings us to the biggest question of all, right? Why? Why build all this? What is the ultimate point?
Well, the goal here isn't just to create some kind of clever literary Sudoku puzzle. The whole point of this elaborate structure is to act as a sort of lens, a way to reveal a deeper, unified meaning by showing how certain key messages appear again and again and again.
And this right here is really the so what of the entire project. The system is built to reinforce these huge themes. Things like Tawheed, which is absolute monotheism, or Kesabaran, patience through hardship. The idea is that these aren't just concepts floating on the surface of the stories. The argument is that they are literally hardwired into the math and poetry of the text itself.
And the author spells this out in the epilogue of the work. It's meant to be a companion for your journey of faith, a guide that encourages you to reflect more deeply, to hold fast to the Quran, and seek that divine grace.
So, in the end, that's what Tamo-Janji Yusuf really is. It's an invitation. An invitation to look at these stories we've known our whole lives, not as separate, isolated tales, but as interconnected parts of a single, vast, and divinely harmonized design.
So whether you see this as a work of divine inspiration, or a testament to faith, or just a brilliantly intricate literary feat, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? In all the stories we think we know so well, what other patterns might be hiding there, just waiting to be discovered?